I was going to say they're normal men. They're not normal. None of us are normal. But they're just good men that really desire to live their lives in a radical way, give themselves over to following Christ, but also helping others to find him and to become saints. And so, we need the Eucharist in the world. You can't have the Eucharist without the priest.
We all know that vocations are not where we'd like them to be. And so Father Corey's got quite the task ahead to try to do that. So I just wanted to, I don't know about interview is the right word, but to ask him or to clarify some things about what a vocations director is, what they do. So I'll try to get specific. So, well, it won't be that specific. It'd be pretty generic, but why do we need a vocations director?
Practically speaking, we need a vocation director because somebody has to be in charge of seminarians. So you have young guys who you're forming for the priesthood. The whole application process to get into seminary is pretty lengthy. The Rome publishes a document on priestly formation, and then each individual bishop conference takes it. They pick it apart a little bit, send it back. Rome approves, and so. I'm still trying to wrap my head around all the new language because it's changed since you and I were in seminary, but the program of priestly formation as it exists now, I think it's the 4th edition in the US, but it kind of dictates certain things that have to take place. And so when men apply to seminary, there's a pretty lengthy interview process that takes place. It's not just something that you go for one interview. There's a psychological evaluation that takes place, interviews from different priests across the diocese. You have to have a physical, biography, narrative of your life, a whole bunch of different aspects that take place in that. And so you have to have somebody who kind of coordinates that, oversees that process of application, and then also getting guys to seminary. A lot of times there's questions, meeting with the families, etc. I always remember when I went to seminary, and actually it was here at St. Joseph. Father Andy was vocation director at the time in your office, but sat there with my parents, and they had their meeting with the vocation director and got to ask all their questions about what is our son about to enter into? Are you going to take care of him? Like blah, blah, blah. Things that parents worry about. But practically speaking, overseeing that application process for seminarians. But then also there's evaluations that get done. And so every year in seminary at different points, you have to submit a personal evaluation of kind of your process of formation. I think anybody who meets a priest will usually say that priests tend to be pretty well-formed people. They're intelligent, they know different things about life, they can exist in a variety of circumstances and situations in life. So they can go to somebody's funeral and not sit there cutting up jokes. They can cook a meal, they can serve a table. People are always laughing a little bit, I think, when they come over for dinners at our house and you and I serve things and plate stuff, and they're like, how do you all know to do this? You're single guys. And it's like seminary formation, like teaches you how to be a good human being. And so there's all those different aspects of formation, but priests are, they're formed in an intellectual tradition, a spiritual tradition, pastoral. So how do you encounter people? And then just how to be a good human. Are you combing your hair? Are you taking care of yourself? Being healthy, things like that. And so vocation director on practical side oversees all of that. But there's kind of two main roles, I guess, in a diocese. There's recruitment, as it exists in Owensboro. So everybody's responsible for vocations. So we were talking the other day, I think, and see the little old lady who comes up to you after Mass and she's like, have you ever thought about being a priest before? And you're like, no, and yeah, or whatever the answer may be. But the vocations, they come from a community. And so the people in the parish, the pastor of the parish, they're calling out those gifts they see in young men and saying, hey, think you might be, have what it takes to be a good priest. You should think about it, pray about it, ask God what he's kind of leading you to in your life. But that next kind of point person then, because being a parish priest, we don't have time to journey with a guy that long and everything. And it used to be for a seminarian, you would study with a priest, then you'd be ordained after so long. But now we send him to seminary, we send him to school. And so the vocation director kind of oversees that. But recruitment-wise, when a guy gets to a certain point where he has enough questions about the priesthood, he's wondering about it, we kind of connect them with the vocation director so that they can kind of enter a period more intentional discernment with the church, being the church kind of as a structure. The bishop plays a role in that of discernment, the application process, etc. But yeah,
So I'm interested in becoming a priest. Who's the first person that I contact?
If you're interested in becoming a priest, I'd say the first person should be your parish pastor, just to say, hey, what's it like as a priest? Can you tell me some things about it? You see Father that you see on the weekends or when you go to Mass and stuff, but always trying to get a little more information first off. And then if it's something that you keep kind of talking with, especially if you don't have a spiritual director or a confessor, somebody that you're talking to about these kind of movements in your heart, that local pastor can help connect you, whether it be that priest or another priest, that you can kind of start that process of kind of digging into those questions more. And then usually I'd say probably depending on where you're at age-wise and things, being able just to send your name and your contact information to the vocation director for the diocese. The diocese hosts retreats, come and see weekends at the seminary, different things where it's kind of very intentional, connecting you with other men that are thinking about a vocation. And so it's kind of a handoff that takes place.
Yeah, and if it was to work the other way around, if they were to contact you first and you don't know them, the first person you're going to call is their pastor and say, hey, do you know this guy? What do you think of him? And so on and so forth. So that's good advice, the fact that you want to probably talk to your pastor, because you're going to have to get a letter from your pastor anyways. So you need to kind of go through, again, the proper channels of the church before they get to you. Not that they can't contact you first. If they see you at ODYC or some sort of parish or a diocesan event, and they're like, well, I know the vocations director pretty well, but I don't know my pastor very well. So it's easier to talk to Father Corey. Again, you're going to have to go through your pastor at some point, so it's important to talk to him too.
And I can help bridge that connection, connect you back with them. So
another question I had was, okay, so June the 10th, that's the second Tuesday of June, obviously. That's when all the priests move. What does that look like for you? What is that that day? It's obviously you're going to be leaving here, but
it'll be a day of U-Haul.
Yeah, because I think sometimes people wonder, like, what happens to the priest when we move? Do we just magically go from one parish to the other? Like, what is the mechanics of that look like?
I've only moved
through the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, it'd be so much easier that way. You didn't have to move.
And poop and stuff.
I've only moved once before. Moved here from one place to another, but June 10th. I know, knowing myself, it'll be a little bit of an emotional day, but saying goodbye, packing up that last load of whatever. I'm hoping to have a lot of things moved beforehand. Also trying to get rid of stuff. If you're looking for some furniture, about to list some things online. But it's a lengthy process. I mean, you just like anybody that moves, you have
looking for
addresses, etc. Stuff you got to change.
Offices. What's your got to move stuff to your office.
I'll be living at St. Joseph and Paul in Owensboro is where I'll be in residence. So it'll be different for me, whereas now I'm the vicar here at St. Joseph. I won't be a parochial vicar. I'll just be Director of Vocations. So I'll be in residence in St. Joseph and Paul. I'll assist them with masses as my schedule allows with that. Going to do a lot of subbing across the diocese for different masses and things to be able to connect and make those vocation connections. But it'll be a lot different ministry than kind of what I've been used to for 4 years.
Yeah, and I bring it up because, your first month, you're going to be just figuring things out. So, people, I know are going to want to connect and say, hey, can we, and it's like, you just need a good month or so to kind of get all your stuff unpacked. Mm-hmm. Where's my, what drawers, my socks? What are they going to go in? Things of that nature. Where do I get gas? What grocery store do I use? All these things take time. So, it's always important for people to realize, just like anybody, most people, they move maybe once or twice in their life. Mm-hmm. And they're living in the same hometown they grew up in. As priests, we're moving in totally different towns, totally different places. You don't know what pharmacists, you don't know anything. So that's important to note that, you're going to need some time. So again, anybody that is interested in vocations, it might take Father Corey a couple weeks to get settled before he might get back to you right away or whatever the case may be. So
anytime that we say yes to God, he always asks a lot from us, but we always, again, we open ourselves up and he shows himself for who he is. He provides in our needs, etc. But the priesthood, you've mentioned about, some guys, they'll think, I'm called to be a priest, I have to be a priest, and it's a discernment process on behalf of the church as well. whether there's a vocation there. And so if everything says yes, if the bishop says yes, if the people in your parish say yes, if the seminary formation staff say yes, those are all good signs that this is God's will for me. And so that kind of Ignatian process of discernment that takes place of, do I feel at peace in this? Do I see the signs of the gifts of the Holy Spirit present? If there's a lot of fear in things that are taking place there, then there's a sign there's some things that need to be kind of prayed through, worked out, counseling, whatever it needs to kind of say, no, is this actually something I'm being called to, or what's going on here? But those fruits and those gifts of the Holy Spirit, I think when those are active in our lives, we experience a lot of peace. I remember when I was the week before my ordination, and 2 weeks before my ordination, I was just like crazy, like still COVID time, so it was crazy to begin with, but trying to organize things, figure stuff out. And then that whole week leading up to it, I wish I could go back to that sense of peace now, because it was like, even though I had stuff going on, every day was just like, I'd wake up and it was just like pure gift from God. And I got to the morning of my ordination, and of course I was up from like 3 a.m. that morning, because I was like, oh gosh, I'm going to be ordained a priest today. Get to the cathedral earlier, make sure I'm not late. I was right down the road. But you have those little bit of nervous things, but everything else was like, it was just the church, God, the community, everybody kept saying, yes, yes, yes. This is a vocation. This is what we see. So
I think too, just to piggyback, sometimes a lot of guys have that question of, well, I don't know if I should get married and have a family, or I should be a priest. Like I kind of like, I have this feeling of both, and that's a good thing. Priesthood is, you are giving something up. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Everybody in the world wants to have their cake and they want to eat it too. But that's not the way it is. If you're married and you have a family, you can't be a priest, so you're giving up that life as well. So it's always, you're going to have to give up something, and both things are good things. Whether you choose to get married and have a family, or you choose to become a priest. I always tell people, because this again goes back to what I've learned in my own life, is whatever vocation, now you do have free will, you get to choose, but if God's calling you to be a priest, don't be afraid to say yes to it, because that's the gift that God's going to give you, and at the end of the day, it's going to save your own soul. And so don't be afraid. God will provide whatever you need. There's always a lot of fear beforehand. I think some of that comes from maybe the devil trying to get you to doubt, get you to change your mind. But when you look back, after you've done it for a while, you're going to say, yeah, that was the right choice. And God took care of me the whole entire way. And I can't imagine my life doing anything else. You just got to get to that point. And again, it goes back to faith in God. And I think that's part of the process. God's testing your faith. Do you trust me? Do you trust that what I'm calling you to, I'm going to take care of you? And that's a big leap for a lot of guys in terms of, am I called to be a priest?
I always say, it's the greatest gift God ever gave me. Each and every day standing at the altar, celebrating Mass, hearing confessions. Oftentimes I'll sit there and you have a moment and you're just like, who am I? Why was I chosen to get to do this? And it's pure grace. It's pure gift from God. But helping men be able to know the joy that the priesthood is something that it's a worthy option for their lives. It's something that they should feel comfortable considering and saying, this is something I could give my life to. I'm going to find great joy, happiness in it. I'm going to find life. I look forward to kind of sharing that joy of the priesthood with others, but also just journeying with the young men of our diocese. When my announcement of becoming vocation director came out, I had a lot of the faculty from St. Meinrad that reached out. And one of the things they always say is, they'd say, you have really good men from the Diocese of Owensboro here. We never have to really kind of worry about things. They're just good men that Owensboro sends. And knowing the seminarians, I'm looking forward to kind of journeying with them as well, because they are good men. They're men that are men of faith, men of prayer. And they're, I was going to say they're normal men. They're not normal. None of us are normal. But they're just good men that really desire to live their lives in a radical way, give themselves over to following Christ, but also helping others to find him and to become saints. And so, we need the Eucharist in the world. You can't have the Eucharist without the priest. But those vocations to priesthood, they come from the family. And so I think I'm really looking forward as well to figuring out ways that we can build that culture of vocation in a family sense in our diocese from a young age, where it's an option that guys can consider and they can see themselves as, I could be like Father Ryan one day. I could be like Father Corey one day. I could be like Bishop Medley. I could be a priest, and it's not something that isn't an option, but it's something that's on the table.
I would imagine that there's an excitement about the fact that there's such a need for priests, and that the responsibility is great, and that it's not all on your shoulders, but a big part of it's on your shoulders. But at the same time, I think part of life is having something to live for and to give your life to. And I don't know that there's going to be a more important role going forward in the Diocese of Owensboro. So I imagine that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. I was talking to my spiritual director this week actually about just inadequacies and feeling like, how do I do this? What do I do? Like, it's you and I both have journeyed with guys have started thinking about seminary and priesthood and things, but it's like, it's a completely different kind of ministry. And so there's a little bit of fear, trepidation of, okay, what's this going to look like? What's going to happen? Trying to find out where my office was going to be, what it was going to look like. There's a lot of unknowns in it, but I think there's also that excitement that it is something new and it's a challenge, and it's a challenge that I believe in. We need. But it's something that I know I'm not alone in, that there's the support from you, from brother priests, that has been really, really kind of inspiring, of guys just sending messages and saying, hey, whatever I can do to support you. We all know that we need priests. And so I'm the Director of Vocations, but
you can't go to Walmart and buy them. People think,
Yeah.
We just they'll just show up, and it takes a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years to get a guy from the day they start to the day that they're ordained. And so they just don't come out of nowhere. And it's something that takes a lot. So people don't understand that. So
Yeah. And we'll have five and a half years without an ordination in the diocese. So it's grim numbers, I guess. If you're a numbers person, you look at it, it's like, how do you staff churches? How do you do this? And it's not so much that I don't think that we don't have vocations in the diocese. I think that sometimes men lack the courage to respond. And so trying again to help them realize it's something worth living for, but it's something worth sacrificing for. That moment of the ordination, right, when the man lays down prostrate on the ground, we do it on Good Friday in the liturgy. It's that whole sign of Christ giving his life for his people. The priest gives everything, so that when you need somebody there at the hospital at 2 a.m., we're the ones that come running. When you're baptizing your little baby, we're the ones that are there sharing in that joy. When you want to get married, we walk you through that process. But it's like you get to touch all these different aspects of life in one day. And sometimes you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh my gosh, where was I? I had all these different emotions and things. But it's a beautiful, beautiful life. And it's a gift.